Lake Champlain, North Shore, Westport, New York. Day 1 of the first session, summer 1952. A girl of 10, from the west side of Manhattan, first year at camp. She stands on the dock with a wooden trunk stenciled with her name and a canvas duffel her father packed the night before. The counselor with the clipboard finds her name on the list. The trunk goes up the worn dirt slope through the pines to the cabin cluster above the water. Third bunk from the door. Screen window facing the lake. It will face the lake every morning for 8 weeks. She does not know this yet. She knows the counselor's name from the name tag. She can still hear the family car on the gravel road below. Camp has begun. What had the parents who turned the car around at the gate believed they had delivered their child to, and what had the camp already understood it was beginning? Camp Dudley, established on Lake Champlain in 1885 by Sumner F. Dudley, is recognized by the American Camp Association as the oldest continuously operating summer camp in the United States. What Dudley began, 7 boys, a week's encampment, swimming and canoeing and time outdoors, became, by the 1920s, the model that dozens of private Adirondack camps elaborated. Lakefront location, wooden cabin clusters, a counselor staff living alongside the children, and a full summer session. 8 weeks. By 1940, that model was drawing urban families from New York, Boston, and Philadelphia, north to the mountain lakes. The child arriving at the dock with her wooden trunk in 1952 was entering an institution 67 years in operation, and a physical landscape her parents had not grown up in and could not provide at home. What 8 weeks of that specific structure was designed to produce in the children who passed through it? That question takes longer than day 1 to answer. Day 3 of the first session, 2:30 in the afternoon. Rest hour, mandatory, bunk confined, given over to the letter home. The letter to her mother had been started on day 1 and had not been finished. This is not what parents imagine when they worry about the first week at camp. Day 1 homesickness is the shock of absence, the specific sounds of home not present, the familiar ceiling not above her. Day 3 at 2:30 is different in kind. It is the moment when the camp has been real long enough to be understood as duration, not a temporary displacement, but 3 more weeks of this. The letter is unfinished, not because she has nothing to say. She started on day 1 to say something true. What she started is no longer accurate on day 3. She has not yet found what is true on day 3. Instead, the counselor who enters the cabin area during rest hour and sees the letter before she sees the child already knows what this specific incompleteness is. What does it mean, and what does it need? Ruth Levine is 19 and in her 3rd summer as a counselor. What she knows about day 3 at 2:30 was not in any orientation document. The orientation covered emergency procedures, program planning, cabin conflict. It did not cover the specific incompleteness of an unfinished letter on day 3, because that incompleteness was not a problem to solve. It was a passage to recognize. Ruth recognized it because at 12, on day 3 of her own first session, her letter had sat unfinished at 2:30, for the same reason. And 3 summers of watching others go through the same passage had given her something that living through it once could not: the knowledge of what it looked like from outside, and what the girl with the unfinished letter did not yet need, and did not yet know, would arrive without being given by day 7. What it did not need was comfort. Comfort addressed the wrong thing. It did not need distraction. Distraction delayed it. What it needed was the one thing that arrived by the morning of day 7 without being given. No program element produced it explicitly. What happened between day 3 and day 7 was that the bunk, the 6 girls who had not chosen each other, placed in the same cabin by a list, began to be the place where she was from. Not home, but the place she currently occupied, which had its own gravity, which she could not leave for 6 more weeks, and which by day 7 she did not want to leave. That was what arrived. The camp had organized for it, without naming what it was organizing. Ruth Levine had watched it arrive in 40 girls. She knew the shape of its arrival. She had never been asked to describe it. The physical design of the Adirondack camp was not accidental. The wooden cabin housing 6 girls and 1 counselor was small enough to make privacy impossible and large enough to make community unavoidable. The dining hall, where the full camp ate 3 meals daily at long wooden tables, was the daily occasion for the camp to be a single community rather than a collection of cabin groups. The dock and the lake were the program's centerpiece, the element most unlike anything in a seventh-floor Manhattan apartment. The flagpole at the center of the grounds, where morning assembly gathered before breakfast, organized each day around a shared ceremony. None of this was accidental. The absence of privacy in the cabin, the enforced community of meals, the lake as the primary physical encounter with the natural world, each was doing something specific in the children who lived inside it. What the Adirondack private camp was not is as important as what it was. Private camp fees in the early 1950s placed the experience beyond most working-class families. The camps along Lake Champlain drew primarily from professional and business families in New York, Boston, and Philadelphia. Racial segregation, formal or informal, excluded black children from most of these private camps well into the 1950s and beyond. The American summer camp, as a social institution, originated as an institution for white, Protestant, middle and upper-class boys from northeastern cities. Jewish families, many first and second generation, built a parallel camp culture in the Catskills and New England from the 1920s. For the children, the private Protestant camps did not serve. The specific developmental passage the long Adirondack session organized was genuine. The population organized for it was deliberately narrow. Both were true of the same institution at the same time. By the mid-1970s, the documented pressure had arrived. Rising real estate values in camp regions, families scheduling summers around competing interests, the growing appeal of shorter specialized programs. Many Adirondack private camps began offering 4-week sessions. What the 4-week session gave families was clear. Half the cost, half the separation, a child home before summer's end. What it gave the child was less clear at the time. The arc from day 1 to day 28 reached day 3, the unfinished letter, the comprehension of duration, and ended before what had arrived by day 7 in an 8-week session had room to arrive. The interval the long residential camp had organized for 60 years did not complete itself in 4 weeks. It had not been designed to.